Welcome, Hudson Valley, to this week's edition of In Touch, the award-winning public affairs and issues program that runs across Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley radio stations. This week's guest is Donna Thomas, founder of James Warriors. The mission of the James Warriors not-for-profit organization is to provide a resource to those affected by suicide through public awareness and education. Plus, we talk about their golf tournament fundraiser happening Monday, August 14th at Casperskill Golf Course in Poughkeepsie. We invite you to join us and listen to a previously recorded conversation between Donna and myself here on In Touch. Hello, Hudson Valley. You're listening to another episode of In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's award-winning public affairs and issues program. We got a great episode for you today, a really passionate one, I got to say. I'm really excited to get into this one. I think we're going to get into some really deep conversations, some ones you may not have realized you really needed. And I'm excited to get into this. So with us today, we have Donna Thomas, founder of James Warriors. Donna, how are you today?
Hi, Connor. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well. Thank you.
I'm really excited to have you in here today with James Warriors. You guys do so much good work, nonprofit organization, providing resources to those affected by suicide through public awareness and education, have so many awesome programs, and not to mention, you have a golf tournament coming up real soon, and we'll get into all of that throughout this episode. But I think the main thing that we need to start off with is just the basic overview. What is James's Warriors to somebody who is unfamiliar with the organization?
So James's Warriors is a nonprofit organization that I founded with the help of Dr. Jamie Arnoff and some board members. And what we do is basically go into schools, colleges, community-based programs, and we talk about mental health awareness and suicide prevention. Now, James's Warriors was built on love for my son, James Thomas, who died by suicide when he was just 19 years old in 2018. And one of the things that sometimes people are surprised about, we had no idea that James was suffering with mental illness. And what I learned was that so many people, like after James's death, came up to me. People struggle, but they struggle in secrecy, right? They struggle with shame. And so for us to change anything, we need to be able to communicate, use the appropriate words, speak about what people feel, because unfortunately, this happens to a lot of people from all different areas. Like anything else, mental illness does not discriminate. And so what our goal is to change that stigma associated with mental illness, to teach kids how to cope with what they're dealing with and learn that they can be okay. And even if you have a mental health issue, you can still have a good life. Yes, you may have to do a couple things, therapy, sometimes medication. I mean, even for myself, I had to change my whole way of thinking because you know what? Who's more suicidal than moms who lose their children, right? They want to be with their children. And so I had to learn how to meditate, to journal, to talk about my feelings, let go of friends that couldn't support me. Not that they were bad friends, but I'm different now. I'm changed and I will never be that person again. So all the knowledge that I've learned through Dr. Arnoff, I was in 2 studies down at Columbia University, one on grief and one on a link to DNA about suicide. I've learned so much from those doctors down there. And so I want to share that information. I want kids to be able to communicate. And one of the great things we do is hopefully with the school works out the way we like to speak to the parents the night before. And then speak to the children. And then there's that line to communicate. Hey, did you see that lady last night? This is what I heard. Did you hear that? Did you ever feel that way? Do you know anybody? Right? Because sometimes our kids are supporting other kids and they don't know how to handle that. So that is our main goal, is to change that stigma, bring about conversation, list resources, and hopefully change the numbers.
I'm glad that you're doing all of this because this is a very serious topic. And as you said, one that a lot of people battle alone. One thing before we got onto the microphone, I say this before most interviews, is if there's a question that feels uncomfortable, say pass. It's only coming from a place of ignorance, not a place of malice. And you said, nope, I am here to talk about whatever. And it's such a good mindset to have for something that's so scary for a lot of people. And you brought up how you're trying to help out kids so that they can support their friends. You know, I had instances in high school where people would hit me up late at night and I wouldn't know what to do. It's one of those things that certainly made me mature a little quicker, where it's like, oh, shoot, I have these friends who are depending on me. What do I do? What do I say to make it better? Because when you're the same age and the same group and everything, what are you supposed to do? You don't got the answers either. So I'm glad that that's something that you prioritize. So you talked about talking with the parents and talking with children. And it sounds like your focus is on more the developing crowd, the adolescent crowd, teen crowd. Can you tell us a little bit about the resources and programs that you do offer and what it looks like when you do visit these groups?
Sure. So basically, we come in, it's myself and Dr. Jamie Arnoff, who has her own practice, BFF Therapy in Beacon. And the first portion of our presentation is basically, I talk about myths, things that are not true, right? Because sometimes parents are afraid, like if you talk about suicide, you know, you're putting ideas in somebody's head. For kids, we talk about things that if you feel depressed or if somebody tells you that they're suicidal, that means they're not going to die by suicide because they're just saying that for attention. And I talk to them about, like, if they're seeking attention, there's something going on, right, to say that. The one section we talk about with kids supporting other students or friends or even families. I have kids who say, I'm supporting my mom, you know.
Absolutely.
And we tell them, like, if you're supporting somebody, you need to have support as well. Yeah. And we call that, can you keep a secret, right? Because that's a lot of times, right, the kids are like, hey, can you keep a secret? So we discuss those kind of things. The second part of our presentation, and again, before I even get into the second part, I even read James's suicide note and people are like, oh, right? Isn't that personal, right? It is personal. But if we don't share these things, my son, if you asked anyone, describe James, they would say he was the funniest person you would ever meet. Right? Yeah. James was one of those people that if you were at a party, you wanted to hang out with him. And listen, he was not a kid like, you know, people, when we were doing our logo, if you see our logo, it's, you know, they're sneakers, right? And it says no one walks alone. And when we were doing logos, you know, his friends were like angel wings. And I'm like, ooh, that just doesn't seem fitting, right? Because he was no angel, right? Let's make that clear. My kid did stuff that, like, many stories. Him and his friends, they brought fireworks on the aqueduct and burnt down like 15 acres, right? And I'm thinking that's a big check. They grabbed the garden hose to take care of that. But you know what I'm saying? So I think that my part is very personable because it's truth, right? I don't get up there and make my kids sound like perfect or that my family's perfect, because that's a lot of shame too, right? Somebody dies by suicide, people in the neighborhood, what did the family do? You know, and my family, we are loud. We are like, we don't take crap from people. That's how we are. But that doesn't mean we're bad people. It doesn't mean your child has mental illness because you curse at your husband at night. You know, like, people need to understand this is so much bigger. And we need to be kind. And I talk to parents about how they interact with somebody who has mental illness, right? I was at a dinner a couple of years ago and it was an acquaintance and one woman didn't show up and the other ladies were like, oh, I think she's off her meds. And I'm thinking to myself, I shouldn't have to know that. And who cares? If she's not here, maybe we should be driving into her driveway and saying, what's going on? Right? Yeah. So we talk a lot with the kids about how to deal with things. We make coping kits for them using 5 senses, right? Because you're in school, we want to keep them in class, right? Because here's the thing, and then myself, if I'm having a day where I am so sorrowful, right? I feel like crying. I can't just get up and walk out of my classroom, right? I have to figure out ways. So I tell the kids, you know, journaling is a great way. You can do it in class, especially if we've spoken at your school and you have one of our journals, they see that, they know, right? Write down your thoughts. You can't get up right now, that's okay. And how to pay attention to your senses. And we go through this whole thing and give them little kits, and they're all stuff from like the Dollar Tree so that they can get more supplies. So then the second half is Dr. Jamie comes on and she talks more about the development of the brain, because kids feel like there's something wrong with me. Nobody else feels this way, right? And even parents feel like, well, he didn't get up. He's just being lazy, right? He has no motivation. His room is a mess, right? I found drugs. He's just trying to party. We teach parents that you can't jump to judgment, right? Because these guys, their brains are developing up to almost 25 years old. So we have to take the information we know and then break it apart. And so Dr. Jamie goes through that. She goes through development, resources, how you should feel, and kind of gives the kids a pat on the back. Like, listen, you got up today, maybe you didn't shower, but maybe you moved from one chair to the other. Good.
Yeah.
Right? So that's basically what we do. We go in, we talk, and teach kids how to communicate to their parents. We do that as well. Like, I can't talk to my mom, right? Because sometimes there's a cultural thing. Like, there are families, like you can be a drug abuser, but you can't have mental illness because that might be the sign of the devil. This is truthful, right?
Yeah.
So a child going home and saying that they have these thoughts, you can't do it. You have resources at school. You have us, we will find a liaison, right? Dutchess County has a great crisis center.
Yes.
And so, the stabilization center. So we have all these resources and we teach the kids. We give them little cards with information on it so they can keep it in their pockets, because some kids are supporting, like I said before, their parents.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do. So that's what we do. We try to give them information about, like, what you're feeling now. You may not feel like that in 10 years. You may not feel like that in 5 minutes. So everything is about the pause. Pause for a second. Talk to somebody. And even with support, like we talked about the kids, right?
Yeah.
How do you support a friend? Listen. I'm here for you. What can I do? But then you need to get support from an adult, right? You need to find somebody who you trust and say, listen, this is what's going on. And that's what we're trying to teach them. Signs and symptoms. I, as a parent in the beginning, felt so bad because my son would say things like, he was a barber. He was a barber over by Home Depot, on Route 9 in Wappingers. He said his feet hurt, his back hurt. So as a mother, I'm like, well, it's because he's a barber, right? So what do? I go get orthotics for his shoes, right? He says he's not sleeping. Oh, let me get a sound machine, essential oils. I'm essentially oil everything. Remember those weighted blankets that came out a couple of years ago? I got everyone a weighted blanket. His girlfriend, the dogs, everybody's got a weighted blanket. Not even thinking that my son was going through a depression or had mental illness. Because listen, he wasn't a scholar at high school, but he went to school, right? He wasn't arrested every minute. I didn't find weapons or drugs in the house. He went to work. I didn't think I thought flags, then that's the other thing, right? A flag, like in school, what did I think a kid who was depressed? Oh, that kid probably wears black, listens to music that's like, alternative, probably doesn't have any friends, doesn't work, doesn't want to go to school. Well, that could be somebody who's depressed, but there are many people who are depressed, anxiety, OCD, who are functioning in society and people have no idea.
Yeah. I think one of the most classic cases in like the last century would probably be, talking about Robin Williams. You said like your son, life of the party, funniest guy, everybody wanted to hang out with him. And, when I remember the day that Robin Williams passed away, and my friends and I who grew up on his material, it's like, here he is, the big funny guy. It's like, no, how could that be him? No, this is a joke. This is a gag, right? To be able to show that it comes in so many different packages and so many different lights is so important. And to be able to have that communication, especially in a post-pandemic world as well, where everything got really flipped on its head, communication has become one of the biggest things possible. And I think you can't emphasize it enough. Again, you're listening to In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's Public Affairs and Issues program. We're speaking with Donna Thomas, founder of James's Warriors. We've been talking about how James's Warriors has come to be and how Donna tells the story and helps children, adolescents, teens, the parents, all that, and how they can communicate better and how they can see the red flags and understanding what is going on. Honestly, I appreciate everything you're saying so far. It is, as somebody who's lost several friends to suicide, especially in very recent years, it's very compelling, and this topic means a lot to me and everything. So,
and I think too, with people with guilt, like, we always think as a family, we focus on our feelings and emotions, right? But there's so much guilt with friends as well.
Yeah.
Like, how did they not know, right? Oh, he called me. I didn't call him back. Could I have done that? Or I was to him in second grade, and I try to tell people, like, suicide and mental illness is so complicated. There's so many factors that go in: hereditary, environmental, deficits of hormones. Like, it's just huge. And so that guilt and everything, we talk about that. Like, we all are doing the best we can in this world.
Yeah.
And so, what we want to teach is to be kind, to listen. That's all we can do.
Absolutely. And going along with the teaching and the awareness of it all, May was Mental Health Awareness Month. It is every year. We did a big focus on that at the time, and it was really great, the conversations that were coming up. Right now we're in August, but next month is a very big month. It is Suicide Prevention Month. Could you tell us about some of the things, procedures, some of the things that you do to kind of prepare for these months? And obviously these are discussions that go well beyond just a couple of months. But it's something else when you do have a specific time to take a moment and pause, because I think those are the moments people will stop and listen a little bit more, and then it'll carry out to the rest of the year. Could you tell us about some of the things that you have in preparing for those times?
Right. So again, you're right. Every day is suicide prevention, right?
Yeah.
But truthfully, having the month named, Suicide Prevention Month, it gives us an opportunity to be involved in more conversations. So like even on James's Warriors on Facebook and Instagram, I try every morning to put information about, continuing your path and my journey, because grief and depression mimic a lot of the same things. And so I talk about things like that. But in the month of September, we start bringing out signs and symptoms, right? Mm-hmm. What things look like, what people think in their minds. Because here's the sad part. A lot of people will replay conversations over and over in their head that are negative, right? We don't take the positive. So we're teaching, this is what a mind that is rapidly deteriorating sounds like. And this is what you can do to change those negative thoughts. And I tell kids it's kind of like Google, right? If you're on your phone and you look up the new iPhone, right? Next 5 seconds, you're going to get a thing from Samsung. You're going to get Verizon will give you a new phone, all these things, right? The brain just keeps, the phone, Google, keeps producing everything to deal with that. Well, that's the same thing with negative thoughts. And I'm not going to go into the whole science, but there's neurotransmitters, right? And so every time you break that link of that negative thought, so you have a negative thought, get up, move a muscle, change that thought. Take your dogs for a walk, do something, call a friend. You don't have to tell them what's going on. But these are the things that we focus on in September. And so every day we put in discussions about what this actually looks like, suicide. We usually, we already have 4 or 5 presentations already booked for September, right, in schools. And so we definitely just wherever we can, and any school that's listening or now, you can just reach us out at jameswarriors.org. We are available to come in and have these conversations. And the kids, you would be surprised, they want them. And I sometimes afterwards, I have kids waiting online. They just want to give me a hug. They just want to give me a hug because you know what? They touch that. So that's what we focus on in September, signs and symptoms and what the science is behind it. And that's definitely helps us because people are looking for information, right? We even are starting to do businesses. I had a business call and say, listen, as part of my package to my employees, I want you to come and speak. Wow. Administrations, like even in September, we have those days. For schools, we're talking to staff because they need to learn how to speak as humans, right? Sometimes we tell kids, what are you doing? I just did this, blah, blah, blah. And I have kids tell me, sometimes when teachers talk to me like that, and I'm not against teachers, I'm in the school district.
Absolutely.
But we lose it, right? We're like, why didn't you do that paper? And in their head, they're thinking, I won't even be here for that paper. So those are the things that we really try to get out, the signs and symptoms and what we or you can do.
Wow, that last thing that you said really hurt. Wow. Not like hurt, but like I felt it. Like I won't even be around. Wow. That's deep. That's deep. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, I think at some point I'm going to write the things that I'm going to start to cry. The kids have said to me. I had one child who said to me, you could never have saved your son. I know, because nobody's going to be able to save me. It's just a matter of time. Right? And you think, how can that be?
Oh my God.
That's what that kid is thinking. Afterwards, we were able to have this parent came in, the school took care of that, the psychologist, but this is what people are thinking in their hearts.
Yeah.
They can't be helped, and it's not true. It's not true. Pause. And even talking to parents about having means in the house, we talk very blunt. I mean, the way my son died was by a firearm. We have never had a firearm in my house. When they said that to me, I'm thinking, what?
Yeah.
It's very complicated.
Very complicated. But to be able to open up those conversations as early as possible, and you never know when you're going to catch somebody the right time. You never know when somebody really is struggling inside like that. And it's so impressive of everything that you're doing. I'm very moved by everything that you just said right here. I'm very, very moved by it. I'm sure whoever's listening to this episode right now, is probably very moved as well. Again, you're listening to In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's Public Affairs and Issues program. We were speaking with Donna Thomas from James's Warriors. We've been talking about the moving and incredibly heart-wrenching yet beautiful things that have come out of this nonprofit organization and everything that's going on with the communication and the way that Donna is going to not just schools but to other businesses and organizations to help with that communication. Because as you said earlier, it does not discriminate. It could be any age, any place, anything like that. And now, I think one of the big things as we wrap up this episode is now all of you guys can help support this amazing program. You guys have this great fundraiser coming up. It is a golf outing August 14th at Casperskill. First of all, my parents did golf outings at Casperskill years ago, and it was always such an amazing time. They treated us very well back then. Hope they're still doing the same for you, and it's really excited to hear what's going on about that. So can you tell us about it? Are there still some spots? Can people sign up? How do people help out? Tell us about it.
Sure. The golf outing, and by the way, Jen at Casperskill, who organizes these events, has been extremely kind and generous to us. And even our fee there to play the whole, you're going to play, you're going to get a breakfast, a bag lunch, and dinner for $175. And that's with golf cart and everything. And so it's very, very reasonable. And why we use that money is basically for us to go into schools and make things like coping kits for the kids. And those coping kits, there's, stress balls and scents and pens and journals and t-shirts, and those kids want to, the other thing about representation with kids, they may not fit in those categories at school, but they'll tear off their shirt and put that James's Warriors shirt, and they'll all be in that cafeteria with it because it's something they understand and they want to represent. We are very excited. If you're interested in James's Warriors golf outing, you can go to James's Warriors, make sure you put the 2 S's.org. Under events, you can sign up right there, and we're happy to have anybody come out and just even hang out with us for the day. If you don't golf and you want to come for the dinner, I think that's $40, and you're welcome to do that as well. We'll have a lot of good prizes and a lot of fun people there.
That's awesome. And I love how you also said that people can come for the dinner, because that's not always just the thing. People hear the golf outing and it's like, oh, I don't golf or I don't have time for the day, but I do have time for dinner. So So I like hearing that too. Now, also, mind you, this is somebody like my dad's a big golfer. I'm a decent enough golfer. But like for somebody who's not in that realm, I like that. That's smart. Very good marketing right there. That's terrific. Now, I feel like we could keep talking about this topic forever, and there's so much we could dig into. We're running out of time. But first of all, I just want to say thank you for everything that you're doing with James's Warriors. Thank you for opening it up to us here on In Touch. I know for sure you're helping somebody out there. Is there any last little nugget? And not just a nugget. How can people find you as well? Where can people go find James's Warriors, everything about you guys, and any last little nugget you have for our listening audience?
Okay, so my last little nugget would be for anybody who's struggling, pause, because what you're feeling now, it will change. So pause, wait, don't jump, don't make those quick decisions. Slow down, take a pause. For anybody else who's looking to find us, again, you can go to James's Warriors. That's JAMESS Warriors.org. There's a contact information form there. And I'll be honest with you, people reach out to me on our social media all the time as well. I talk to a lot of people. I get calls all the time from, kids that we spoke to at schools and some parents, and you can always reach me out there. And I'll be quite honest with you, when you see a lot of our brochures and phone numbers, it's a direct link to myself. And I try my best to help anyone I can.
That's terrific. And it sounds like you're doing a lot. In a 5-year span, you've built up so much, and here you are helping the community in such beautiful ways. So honestly, really appreciate everything that you're doing. Donna, thank you so much for being here today, sharing your story, and all the best with the golf outing coming up.
Thank you, Connor, for having me and speaking with me and giving us this opportunity and platform, because we are a small nonprofit. So, funds, we could never be able to do a commercial per se or things like that. So we appreciate and, sending our love. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
This has been this week's edition of In Touch, the award-winning public affairs and issues program that runs across Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley radio stations. We want to give a big thank you to Donna Thomas. For more information on James's Warriors, their presentations, programs, and upcoming golf outing, please visit jameswarriors.org. Of course, all links and information can be found in the description of this episode. I've been your host, Connor Walsh. Until next time, stay curious, keep an open mind, and as always, I'm glad we get to spend some time.